This is almost a year-old crisis. When the Turkish general elections were taking place, one of the Turkish ministers, a lady actually, wanted to go into Netherlands and make a public campaign speech in Netherlands, and Netherlands was against that, together with several other local governments in Germany, federal governments in Germany, that clearly prohibited Turkish ministers or politicians from AKP line to come and speak to the Turkish origined citizens of those countries on grounds that that will polarize their own citizens. Leave aside the acceptability of such a prohibition, but the problem was a real problem at that time, because a Turkish minister was stopped on her way to Rotterdam and was actually expelled from Netherlands. Up until then, the Turkish government is not actually sending an ambassador to Netherlands, and the Dutch ambassador was waiting back in his country. The Dutch government tried to send the ambassador back to Turkey, but the Turkish side didn't accept. The Turkish side insisted that the Dutch government should apologize with an official letter. In the end, it seems the diplomatic process of bargaining was cut down. I can say that the Western countries, both European Union and United States, are actually playing a kind of good policy, bad policy game with Turkey in order to convince Turkey not to go further towards Iran or Russia in the Middle East. So in the case of European Union, the members of the European Union were ready to speak to Turkey about a possibility of visa-free Turkish mobility in the Schengen area, whereas the European Parliament, which always was more critical of human rights breaches in Turkey, made it very clear that let alone visa-free entry into Europe, even a membership is in danger. In fact, the process is in danger in itself. Katy Perry has always been in favor of freezing the bargaining process. I can say that given the coalition government in Germany having put a condition of not opening new chapters in the bargaining process with Turkey, suggests that Katy Perry and European Parliament is going to win. The same happens in the United States. We see the White House and the Secretary of State speaking with different languages to Turkey, whereas the Turkish president is quite unhappy with the White House. He may be speaking with the Secretary of State. I think there is already a Cold War between Turkey and the West altogether, and particularly the United States. And the United States, having quite a bit of experience from the previous Cold War with the Soviet Empire, is playing the game, I can say, better. A minister from the Turkish parliament, in fact the speaker of the Turkish government and a vice prime minister, suggests that any American soldier who is wearing the uniforms of PYD, meaning clearly supportive of PYD, which is labeled a terrorist organization by the Turkish government, is going to be a target also. This is a clear message to the American side, meaning leave the Kurds and work with me. On the other hand, the American side didn't answer this challenge by the mouth of Speaker of the Parliament, Speaker of the American government, or even a minister, or anybody from the White House, but a colonel on the grounds went to Manbij and made it very clear that if any American soldier is wounded, they are going to be responding excessively. So this is a kind of fight of words. And the American side is always giving a message to the Turkish side that they're not taken serious. In fact, a Turkish vice president is actually only an equivalent of a colonel, American colonel, who is fighting in the region. Is the Turkish side serious about that? Well, the Turkish president has already said that their ultimate plan is to send 3.5 million Syrian refugees back to the area carved in the north of Syria. They are serious. I believe that the ultimate policy of United States is not loyalty to the Kurds that actually fought with them against IS, but ultimate policy of the United States is to have an eye on Turkey's alliance with the Western alliance. So to keep Turkey in NATO alliance and prevent Turkey being dragged further to the laps of Putin. So I think Ankara is reading the game cleverly in that sense, and by way of giving every other month a new message to the Western alliance that they are actually being coveted by Putin and they are ready to go there. I think the Western alliance has to make a critical decision here. In fact, the new decision to buy helicopters from Russia after the S-400 missiles is telling. It does suggest that the second largest army of NATO may be invaded from within by the forces of Putin. I believe that the Americans are going to do a lot of concessions in order to stop that. Turkish president has an interesting reading of history. First of all, his understanding of history is a teleological understanding of history. He doesn't look at the past in order to take lessons. He looks at the past in order to say where we are going to. Because he is a man of mission, and he believes genuinely that he has a mission in this world to lead the Muslim world out of its current disunity, out of its current internal fights and backwardness. In that sense, he is depicting himself as a leader, not only as a political leader, which he is already, at least in his own country, and he is largely loved in the Arab streets particularly. He wants to depict himself as a man of religion, as a religious leader. In fact, he is trying to unite the two offices, the church and the state, being the leader. So, for example, when he gave an interview recently to international media, he said, religion is so important for me. While he was going to Italy to meet the Pope, he said, it comes first. While the Pope is a head of state and a head of a church, and Erdogan was depicting himself as such. Of course, this kind of unity of church and state will give him more power on issues like Jerusalem, which is not only a political issue, but also a cultural, religious issue. That is the reason why Jerusalem was largely on the table while speaking with the Pope. Well, first of all, whether we are yet there to speak about a post-IS Syria or not is an issue of question mark. It seems that IS is regrouping within Syria and Iraq, and it is in fact no longer a territorial entity, but it is more spread, meaning in the past they were only a challenge in these two countries and only in their own sovereignty zones, which they declared, but now they are in Turkey, they are in Jordan, they are in regional countries, so they are a larger threat by means of territory. So it is a concern not only for the West, but also for those countries, for Turkey, including Turkey. IS can easily turn Turkey into a stepping stone for operations into the heartland of Europe, of Western allies. So that needs to be stopped there. And Turkey needs cooperating with Western allies, and the West needs Turkey by means of that cooperation. I think it's not about post-IS Syria, it's about the new world. And the new world is a world where terror organizations are able to launch asymmetrical war to governments and international bodies. A second issue may be about the over-involvement of Iran into the issues of Syria. In fact, at least for once, Iranian-controlled soldiers launched an attack on the Turkish army in Syria, and this was the very first, I think, hot clash between Iranian and Turkish soldiers for about 300 years in history. So this is serious. This may be triggering a new war between Sunnis and Shiites, and the United States cannot be aloof to that.